Okay, again, this is an overview of the psychology of quality of life, hedonic well-being, life satisfaction, and eudaimonia. This is a book that I wrote. My name is Joseph Sergi, and we're continuing to describe some of the chapters in the book, and we are now down to that part of the book which deals with subjective reality and its effect of happiness. And in that context, we just finished describing some of the preceding chapters. The preceding chapters in that part involve personality effects. Oh, and actually, the second part, which is this is what we're about to describe or to discuss, and that is the effects of affect and cognition on subjective well-being. So this is what we'll be talking about right now. And this is the slide that captures much of the research in that area, that is the effects of affect and cognition on happiness. So in this context, we have research that focused on the effect of mood, causal attributions, appraisals, habituation, and cognitive frames. Okay, mood. Well, much research coming from experimental social psychology have shown that the induction of mood, so when you actually put a subject in a situation in which you manipulate mood, make it positive or negative, that affects that the subject's life satisfaction judgment. So positive mood induction leads to higher ratings of life satisfaction compared to negative mood induction. So, from this type of research, we were able to um, demonstrate that uh, positive or negative mood tends to affect how people make judgments about their lives, as in life satisfaction. Okay, now moving moving along to causal attributions. I have two bullet points there: attribution theory of happiness and attribution theory of depression. And the idea is attribution theory of happiness posits that people feel happier when they attribute their life successes to internal, stable factors. For example, I'm successful in my career, marriage, finances, friendship, and the like because I'm an intelligent, caring person. So, again, the attribution is what you might call internal and stable to oneself. That person is taking credit for this rather than external, unstable factors like I'm successful because of luck. I'm a lucky person. Well, if a person make that kind of attribution, it's not likely to feel positive emotion um, from this kind of thinking, from taking credit um, in life successes. Well, attribution theory of depression is exactly the converse, which asserts that depressed people are more likely to believe that negative events are caused by global and stable causes, and that negative events are very likely to continue to happen to them. Depressed people think about the world in self defeating ways. So, again, in a situation when they fail, what they do is instead of explaining their failure in situational terms, they explain their failure in dispositional terms, meaning they blame themselves. And when they blame themselves, ultimately, this kind of thinking makes them feel depressed, which is the opposite of happiness. Appraisals. Um, People can increase their subjective well being by controlling the valence of their thoughts. Let me give you an example here. Let's say if we're talking about sometimes some of the research indicates that religious people, especially those people who who have strong religious beliefs, they tend to have higher subjective well-being than those people who are not as religious. And what's the explanation for that? So, studies have shown that on the average, religious people are happier than non religious. And this may be due to the fact that religious people believe in God and that God is good, and everything that happens in life is directly or indirectly related to God's goodness. These positive thoughts contribute to subjective well being. So again, it's the thinking, it's how you appraise the situation and how you give it meaning. And if you give it meaning in terms of goodness, then again that may induce subjective well-being. How about habituation? Habituation, again, people set goals and they experience satisfaction with goal attainment. But people get habituated over time and their goals lose their valence over time. So, what would be an example of that? Let's say a person who sets his or her goal um, to live a lifestyle of maybe upper middle class, and through social mobility, they become upper middle class. Well, over time, when they first become upper middle class, from a socioeconomic perspective, they feel very pleased because you know that's exactly what the goal is, and goal attainment generates quite a bit of uh, positive emotions. But over time, you know, the valence, the positivity associated with that goal loses its strength. And therefore, over time, living the lifestyle of the upper middle class kind of loses its um, uh, its appeal in the way it induces subjective well-being. So there's an habituation effect. And that's why a lot of people tend to avoid this habituation by seeking new goals. Seeking new goals, again, would allow them to maintain a certain level of life satisfaction. Okay, moving on along to the last item, which is cognitive frames. The life satisfaction judgment, when people make a judgment about their lives, whether they're happy or not happy with their lives, they tend to use a cognitive frame. That means some sort of a referent. And depending on the referent that one is using, then those judgments can vary quite a bit. And there are two theories that have been sort of accepted in the quality of life literature, which is multiple, excuse me, multiple discrepancies theory, um, by again a one of our gurus in quality of life research by the name of Alex Mikolos. Um, and his theory says that, uh, again, the life satisfaction judgment is very much based on uh, one's assessment of their actual situation, or at least their perceived actual situation, and and several reference. And what are those reference? Um, the reference would be what one wants, so again, a desired state, what others have, the best one had in the past, what one expected to have 3 years ago, what one expects to have 5 years ago, no, what one expects to have in 5 years, what one deserves, what one needs. So when a person is making an assessment of discrepancy or the gap between one's actual state and those different types of goals, then this life satisfaction judgment is made as a function of assessing those discrepancies. The same thing with congruity life satisfaction. It is um, it is construed in terms of life satisfaction is a judgment which is made as a function of one comparing uh, one's life goals with different types of um, standards of comparison. So what are those standard of comparison? Now I'm looking at the scale that was developed by myself and my colleagues um, sometime back in 1995, and I can read to you some of those statements. Compared to my lifetime goals, ideals, what you had ideally hoped to become, how satisfied you are. Compared to what you feel you deserve to have happen to you, considering all that you've worked for, how satisfied are you? Compared to the accomplishments of our relatives, parents, brothers, sister, etc., how satisfied are you? Compared to the accomplishments of your friends and associates, how satisfied are you? Compared to the accomplishments of most people in your position, how satisfied are you? Compared to what you've been and how far you've come along, the progress that you made, the changes you've gone through, or the level of growth you've experienced, how satisfied are you? Compared to what you have expected from yourself all along, considering your resources, strength, and weaknesses, how satisfied are you? Compared to what you may have predicted about yourself becoming, how satisfied are you? Compared to what you feel you should have accomplished so far, how satisfied are you? Compared to what you feel is the minimum of what anyone in your position should have accomplished and be able to accomplish, how satisfied are you? So again, those items represent different, what you call standard of comparisons. And if one would make an assessment about one's life in relation to those different standards of comparison, then again, the overall composite life satisfaction score is made up of a satisfaction ratings as a function of the items I just read to you. Okay, well, that concludes this particular module.